Personality is a complex tapestry of patterns, of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that define how we experience the world and relate to others. We each carry a distinct personality. Within this uniqueness lies a deeper truth. Understanding our authentic self is essential to navigating life's complexities. This audio journey invites you to explore the rich layers of your personality, whilst offering insight not only into yourselves, but also into your connections with others. This path of self-knowledge is the foundation for growth, compassion, and meaningful living. As you gain insight throughout this video, comment what personality you think you are and why. Ancient Archetypes, from 4 humours to modern typologies. Human beings have always been fascinated by the question, why are we the way we are? What makes one person lively and social, while another is reserved and introspective? Long before modern psychology existed, thinkers sought to explain the vast diversity in human personality through frameworks grounded in the natural world and philosophy. One of the earliest and most influential models emerged in ancient Greece with the theory of the 4 humours. Dating back to Hippocrates, circa 460 to 370 BCE, often hailed as the father of medicine, this theory posited that human temperament and health depended on the balance of 4 bodily fluids, or humours: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. Each humour was thought to influence personality in specific ways, creating 4 fundamental temperament types: sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and phlegmatic. This medical and psychological theory was not just a crude guess. It was grounded in the holistic worldview of the time, which saw mind and body as intertwined and nature as a system of balances and opposites. The sanguine type, associated with an abundance of blood, was seen as warm, cheerful, and enthusiastic. Sanguines were thought to be outgoing and charismatic, often the life of social gatherings, quick to laugh and eager to engage with the world. The choleric temperament linked to yellow bile represented ambition, energy, and a fiery disposition. Cholerics were decisive, driven, and sometimes easily angered. Natural leaders and warriors, but prone to impatience and dominance. The melancholic type, associated with black bile, was introspective, serious, and prone to deep thought and reflection. Melancholics were often sensitive, cautious, and sometimes inclined toward anxiety or depression. They valued order, precision, and integrity. Finally, the phlegmatic temperament connected with phlegm was characterized by calmness, reliability, and a peaceful nature. Phlegmatics were steady, patient, and diplomatic, but could also be resistant to change or overly complacent. This model persisted for over a millennium, influencing the way mental health, personality, and even disease were understood across civilizations. Galen, the influential Roman physician, further systematized the humoral theory in the 2nd century CE, reinforcing its place in Western medicine and psychology. Medieval European medicine and philosophy were deeply shaped by this framework, which also found echoes in Indian Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese traditional concepts, showing a universal human impulse to categorize personality into elemental qualities. The enduring appeal of the 4 temperaments lies not only in their descriptive power, but in their metaphorical resonance. Even if modern science has long abandoned the idea that personality is literally determined by bodily fluids, the categories remain culturally and psychologically significant. They tap into archetypal patterns that reflect basic emotional and behavioural tendencies, patterns we recognise in ourselves and others. For example, in literature and art, these temperaments often serve as shorthand for character traits: the impulsive lover, sanguine; the fierce ruler, choleric; the brooding poet, melancholic; and the steadfast friend, phlegmatic. These archetypes provide a timeless vocabulary to understand human differences and dynamics. The legacy of the 4 humours is evident in later psychological typologies and theories. They anticipated the idea that personality is multidimensional, consisting of both temperament and character. They suggested that people could be broadly grouped based on emotional tone, energy level, and interaction style, concepts still central to personality psychology today. Moreover, the humoral theory introduced an essential idea: balance. Just as health depended on balancing humours, psychological well-being depends on harmonizing different aspects of personality. This concept echoes through centuries, culminating in modern ideas about emotional regulation, resilience, and self-integration. However, while the 4 temperaments offered a broad-stroke classification, the complexity of human personality demanded more nuanced approaches. As science advanced, thinkers sought to move beyond metaphor and anecdote toward empirical observation and psychological theory. The journey from the 4 humours to modern personality science reflects humanity's enduring quest to understand itself, a quest marked by curiosity, humility, and the recognition of our own complexity. In sum, the ancient archetypes of temperament offer more than historical curiosity. They remind us that personality is an age-old mystery, approached through many lenses: biological, philosophical, cultural, each adding layers of insight. These early models laid the groundwork for modern psychology's deeper explorations, helping us appreciate the continuity and evolution of ideas about who we are. Jung's vision: archetypes and psychological types. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, offered one of the most profound and lasting contributions to the study of personality. His work went beyond categorizing traits. It delved into the deep architecture of the human psyche, exploring how we perceive, judge, and relate to the world, and to ourselves. Jung's interest in personality types emerged from his efforts to understand the fundamental differences between people and to explain why some psychological theories resonated differently for different individuals. One famous example was his observation that Sigmund Freud and Alfred Adler, 2 towering figures in early psychology, operated from very different internal perspectives. Freud was more outwardly focused on objects and external realities, while Adler was inwardly focused on feelings of inferiority and personal drive. Jung realized that these differences were rooted in deeper, unconscious attitudes and functions within the psyche. At the core of Jung's typology is the distinction between introversion and extroversion, which describes the direction of a person's psychic energy, or libido. For Jung, libido was not merely sexual energy as Freud proposed, but a broader psychic energy that could be directed inward or outward. The extrovert is energized by the external world, people, activities, objects, and experiences outside themselves. Extroverts tend to be outgoing, social, and action-oriented. They respond quickly to external stimuli, often acting before fully thinking, and draw their sense of identity from their engagement with the outside world. The introvert, by contrast, is energized by their inner world of thoughts, feelings, and reflections. Introverts tend to be reserved, reflective, and cautious. They consider their actions carefully and are more focused on internal experiences than external ones. Jung famously described these attitudes as a polarity of human experience, neither better nor worse, but complementary. Both types have their strengths and shadows, and both are necessary for the wholeness of the individual and the collective. But Jung did not stop with attitude types. He also identified 4 psychological functions, the ways we perceive information and make decisions, that interact with introversion and extroversion to form a complex typological system. These functions are thinking, a rational function that involves logical analysis, categorization, and objective decision-making. Thinking types seek to understand and structure information intellectually. Feeling, another rational function, but one focused on evaluating value, meaning, and emotional significance. Feeling types make decisions based on empathy, harmony, and personal or social values. Sensation, an irrational function that relates to perceiving the world through the 5 senses, focusing on concrete reality and present experience. Sensation types are grounded in the here and now. Intuition, also an irrational function. Intuition perceives possibilities, patterns, and meanings beyond immediate sensory input. Intuitive types are drawn to abstract ideas, future potentials, and symbolic meanings. Each of these functions can be expressed in an extroverted or introverted form, creating a total of 8 psychological types: extroverted thinking, introverted thinking, extroverted feeling, introverted feeling, extroverted sensation, introverted sensation, extroverted intuition, introverted intuition. For Jung, these types were not rigid categories but fluid tendencies. One function tends to dominate a person's conscious awareness and behavior, supported by auxiliary functions that balance the psyche. The less developed functions dwell in the unconscious, often manifesting as the shadow side of personality, those traits and potentials we deny or repress. Jung's typology offered a dynamic map of psychological development, where health is measured not by rigid adherence to one type, but by integration, the ability to consciously recognize and balance all functions. The process of individuation, central to Jungian psychology, is this lifelong journey towards self-realization and wholeness. Beyond personality classification, Jung's work introduced the concept of archetypes, universal, primordial images and themes embedded in the collective unconscious shared by all humans. Archetypes shape our experiences, myths, dreams, and even personality. The introvert and extrovert themselves can be seen as archetypal attitudes, while other archetypes, such as the shadow, the anima, animus, the wise old man, and the hero, play crucial roles in personal growth and psychological balance. Jung's insight was that understanding our personality type is not just about labeling, but about revealing our unique psychological structure and its unconscious depths. This self-knowledge empowers us to navigate life with greater authenticity and balance. His typology also explains why people often misunderstand each other. The dominant attitudes and functions create different world views, different ways of processing reality. For instance, an extroverted thinking type may prioritize logic and external facts, while an introverted feeling type values subjective emotions and internal harmony. Neither is inherently superior, they simply approach life from different angles. Jung's ideas have had a vast influence, inspiring psychological tests like the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, which simplified his model into a popular personality framework. Yet, Jung himself warned against reducing personality to fixed categories. His typology was a tool for insight, not a box to trap people in. In today's world, where understanding human differences is more important than ever, Jung's vision remains a cornerstone of personality psychology. It reminds us that personality is a multifaceted, evolving system, deeply rooted in unconscious processes and symbolic meanings. By embracing the complexity of our psychological types and the archetypal energies within, we gain a richer understanding of ourselves and others. This awareness is the foundation for empathy, personal growth, and harmonious relationships. The Big Five, science's most trusted framework. While Carl Jung's typology profoundly shaped personality psychology, the modern scientific study of personality often centers on a different model: the Big Five personality traits, also known as the five-factor model of FFM. Unlike Jung's psychologically rich and symbolic approach, the Big Five is grounded in extensive empirical research and statistical analysis of human behavior and self-report data. It offers a robust and reliable framework to describe the broad dimensions of personality. The Big Five identifies 5 core dimensions that capture much of the variation in human personality across cultures and populations: openness to experience. This trait reflects the degree to which a person is imaginative, curious and open-minded versus conventional and resistant to change. High openness is associated with creativity, intellectual curiosity, appreciation for art, and a preference for novelty. People low in openness may prefer routine, tradition, and concrete facts over abstract ideas. It's not simply a matter of intelligence, but how receptive someone is to new experiences and perspectives. Conscientiousness. This trait describes a person's degree of organization, dependability, and self-discipline. Highly conscientious individuals tend to be reliable, methodical, and goal-oriented, often excelling in planning and follow-through. Low conscientiousness may be linked to impulsivity, disorganization, and a more spontaneous approach to life. This trait correlates strongly with professional success, academic achievement, and even physical health outcomes. Extroversion. Much like Jung's extroversion, this dimension captures sociability, assertiveness, and the tendency to seek stimulation from the external world. Extroverts are energetic, talkative, and enjoy social gatherings. Introverts, on the other hand, are more reserved, prefer solitude or small groups, and may find large social settings draining. It's important to note that extroversion in the Big Five is measured on a continuum, and neither end is inherently better or worse. Agreeableness. Agreeableness reflects how cooperative, compassionate, and trusting a person is in interpersonal relationships. Highly agreeable people tend to be empathetic, altruistic, and conflict-averse. Those low in agreeableness may be more competitive, skeptical, and blunt. This trait plays a significant role in social harmony, workplace dynamics, and conflict resolution. Neuroticism. This dimension measures emotional stability versus emotional volatility. Individuals high in neuroticism are more prone to anxiety, mood swings, irritability, and negative emotions. Those low in neuroticism tend to be calm, resilient, and less reactive to stress. Neuroticism is linked to mental health challenges, but also to heightened sensitivity and emotional depth. One reason the Big Five is so widely respected in psychological science is its strong predictive power. These 5 traits reliably correlate with life outcomes like job performance, relationship satisfaction, health behaviours, and even political attitudes. Their universality across cultures suggests these traits may be deeply rooted in human biology. Unlike typologies that attempt to divide people into discrete categories, the Big Five operates on continuous spectrums. Everyone possesses each trait to some degree, and the unique combination of scores creates a distinct personality profile. This dimensional approach better captures the nuances and complexities of human behaviour. The Big Five also sidesteps some of the criticisms aimed at typologies like the MBTI. Because it is based on rigorous statistical methods like factor analysis, it is considered scientifically valid and reliable. It is less prone to the oversimplifications and rigid classifications that typologies sometimes encourage. Nonetheless, the Big Five model is not without limitations. It provides a broad brush description rather than deep insight into the underlying psychological mechanisms or unconscious motivations. It tells us what traits someone has, but not why those traits manifest or how they interact with life experiences or inner conflicts. For example, 2 people high in openness may express that trait in vastly different ways, one as an artist, the other as a philosopher. The Big Five does not explore the rich symbolic or archetypal meanings that Jung's approach embraces. Moreover, while the Big Five can predict tendencies and behaviours, it does not account for personality change over time or situational variations. Personality is not static. It evolves through life experiences, relationships, and conscious effort. The Big Five captures a snapshot, but not the full movie of personality development. In practical applications, the Big Five informs clinical psychology, human resources, and even marketing. Employers use it to predict job fit, clinicians to understand patient vulnerabilities, and researchers to study personality across demographics. Understanding the Big Five also helps us see that personality is not destiny. Traits describe tendencies but do not fix our futures. Awareness of our profile can empower us to leverage strengths, manage weaknesses, and foster personal growth. In sum, the Big Five stands as a scientifically grounded, comprehensive, and nuanced model of personality that complements Jung's rich typology. It provides a reliable vocabulary for describing human differences and predicting behaviour, while reminding us that personality is complex, layered, and continually unfolding. MBTI, the 16 Types and the Power of Preferences. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, is arguably the most famous personality assessment in the world. Millions have taken the test, found meaning in its results, and used it to better understand themselves and others. Yet, despite its popularity, MBTI remains controversial among psychologists, who question its scientific rigor and practical validity. To fully appreciate MBTI, we must explore its origins, structure, strengths, and limitations. The MBTI was developed by Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers during World War II. Inspired by Carl Jung's theory of psychological types, Jung's complex psychological insights were translated into an accessible and user-friendly tool designed to help people better understand themselves and their interpersonal dynamics, especially in stressful times of upheaval and change. At its core, MBTI categorizes people along 4 dichotomies or preference scales, producing 16 unique personality types. These dichotomies are extroversion, E, versus introversion, I. This dimension reflects how individuals prefer to direct their energy, outwardly toward people and activities, or inwardly toward thoughts and reflection. Unlike Jung's broader conceptualization, MBTI treats this as a clear preference. Extroverts gain energy from social interaction, introverts recharge through solitude. Sensing, S, versus intuition, N. This dichotomy describes how a person prefers to gather information. Sensing types focus on concrete facts, details, and present realities. Intuitive types look for patterns, possibilities, and underlying meanings, often thinking abstractly or imaginatively. Thinking, T versus feeling, F. This scale indicates how people make decisions. Thinking types prioritize logic, consistency, and objective criteria. Feeling types consider personal values, emotions, and the impact on others. Judging, J versus perceiving, P. This last dichotomy reflects one's lifestyle and approach to the external world. Judging types prefer structure, planning, and decisiveness. Perceiving types are more spontaneous, flexible, and open to new information. When combined, these preferences create a 4-letter personality type, for example, INFJ, ESTP, or ENFP. Each type is thought to represent a distinctive worldview, set of motivations, communication style, and approach to challenges. For many, MBTI offers powerful self-insight. It provides a language to articulate personal preferences and differences without judgment. The idea that no type is better or worse than another fosters self-acceptance and appreciation for diversity. MBTI is also popular in workplace team building, career counseling, and relationship coaching. However, from a scientific perspective, MBTI faces several criticisms. The main concern is that it categorizes people into types, rather than viewing personality traits as continuous spectrums. This dichotomous approach can oversimplify complex human behavior and lead to overgeneralizations. For example, someone close to the border between introversion and extroversion may be labeled as one or the other, even though their behavior varies depending on context. Further studies have found that MBTI's reliability can be questionable. Individuals may receive different results when retaking the test after only a few weeks. Its validity, or ability to predict behavior and life outcomes, is also weaker compared to models like the Big Five. Another challenge is that MBTI does not adequately capture emotional depth, unconscious motivations, or personality development over time. It focuses on preferred ways of processing information and interacting with the world, but does not explain why those preferences emerged or how they might shift with life experience. Despite these limitations, MBTI's appeal lies in its accessibility and the narratives it creates. Many find comfort and community by identifying with their type. Type descriptions can feel eerily accurate, tapping into the human desire for meaning and self-understanding. It is important to remember that MBTI is best used as a tool for reflection, not a strict classification. The test invites people to explore their preferences and consider how these shape their relationships and choices. It also encourages respect for differences, highlighting that diversity in cognition and behavior enriches human interaction. Moreover, MBTI has evolved with practitioners who incorporate more dynamic interpretations. Instead of rigidly assigning types, many coaches and therapists use it as a starting point for exploring flexibility, growth, and the development of less dominant functions, much like Jung's concept of balancing the shadow side. In educational settings, MBTI can help students recognize their learning styles and adapt study strategies accordingly. In the workplace, it can improve communication by revealing why co-workers approach problems differently or respond to stress in distinct ways. However, misuse of MBTI can lead to stereotyping, pigeonholing, and fixed mindsets. It is crucial to resist the temptation to label oneself or others in limiting ways. Personalities are fluid and multifaceted, and no 4-letter code can capture the full human experience. Ultimately, MBTI is a bridge between Jungian depth psychology and popular culture. It distills complex theories into approachable language, helping many embark on a journey of self-discovery. But as with any model, it must be handled with care, humility, and an awareness of its boundaries. Understanding MBTI alongside other frameworks allows a more nuanced view of personality, one that honors both the science and the soul of human individuality. The Enneagram, 9 Paths to Self-Awareness. The Enneagram is a fascinating and increasingly popular personality system that offers a unique lens into human motivation, fears, and growth. Unlike many models that focus primarily on behavior or traits, The Enneagram dives deep into the core emotional drivers and unconscious patterns that shape who we are, making it a powerful tool for self-awareness and transformation. Its origins are somewhat mysterious, blending ancient wisdom traditions with modern psychological insights. Some trace the Enneagram's roots back to early Christian mysticism, Sufi teachings, and even Pythagorean mathematics. The modern psychological form of the Enneagram was developed and popularized in the 20th century by thinkers such as Oscar Ichazo and Claudio Naranjo, who integrated these ancient ideas with contemporary psychotherapy. At its heart, the Enneagram identifies 9 distinct personality types, each defined by a central motivation, core fears, and habitual ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. The 9 types are often represented as points on a geometric figure, the Enneagram, that reveals the dynamic relationships between them. These connections demonstrate how people move under stress or in growth, providing a map for personal development. Here are the 9 types in brief. Type 1, the reformer, principled, purposeful, and self-controlled. 1 strive for perfection and integrity, but may struggle with criticism and impatience. Type 2, the helper, caring, interpersonal, and generous. 2 seek to be loved and needed, but risk losing themselves in others' needs. Type 3, the achiever, success-oriented, adaptable, and driven. 3s focus on accomplishment and image, but can become overly concerned with status. Type 4, the individualist, sensitive, introspective, and expressive. 4s desire authenticity and meaning, but may feel misunderstood or melancholy. Type 5, the investigator, observant, cerebral, and private. 5s seek knowledge and self-sufficiency, but may isolate themselves emotionally. Type 6, the loyalist, committed, security-oriented, and responsible. 6s value safety and support, but can become anxious or suspicious. Type 7, the enthusiast, spontaneous, adventurous, and optimistic. 7s avoid pain and seek excitement, but may struggle with impulsivity. Type 8, the challenger, powerful, assertive, and protective. 8s value control and justice, but can be confrontational or domineering. And Type 9, the peacemaker, easygoing, receptive, and reassuring. 9s seek harmony and avoid conflict, but may neglect their own needs. What distinguishes the Enneagram is its emphasis on the inner emotional landscape that drives behaviour. Each type is shaped by a fundamental fear and a corresponding desire. For example, Type 1 fears being corrupt or defective and desires integrity. Type 6 fears insecurity and craves safety and support. This focus on fear and desire helps explain why people behave the way they do, not just what they do. It exposes the unconscious forces that propel us, often without our awareness. The Enneagram's profound utility lies in its ability to help people recognize their unconscious patterns and fears, providing a pathway toward greater freedom. By understanding their type's typical reactions, strengths, and blind spots, individuals can begin to consciously choose responses that align with their best selves instead of habitual defenses. It's important to note that the Enneagram is not merely a tool for labeling, but rather a map for psychological and spiritual growth. Its roots in mystical traditions emphasize the journey toward wholeness, where one integrates shadow aspects, heals emotional wounds, and awakens to a fuller sense of identity. Practically, many use the Enneagram in therapy, coaching, and personal reflection. It can improve relationships by fostering empathy and clearer communication. When both partners understand their types, they can navigate conflicts with more compassion and less projection. Yet the Enneagram also faces critiques. Like any typology, it risks being oversimplified or misused when treated as a rigid box rather than a fluid guide. Some question the reliability of self-assessments due to the deep psychological honesty required. There is also debate about its empirical scientific foundation compared to trait-based models. Despite this, the Enneagram's enduring popularity signals its profound resonance with the human experience. It speaks to our need to understand the why behind our actions, the fears beneath our masks, and the path toward genuine transformation. In sum, the Enneagram invites us on a journey inward, asking us to face our deepest motivations and patterns with curiosity and courage. It is a tool not just for knowing ourselves, but for evolving beyond the confines of our unconscious habits toward greater authenticity and freedom. Nature versus nurture: the origins of personality. The question of what shapes who we are has intrigued philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for centuries. Are we born with fixed personalities, or do our experiences and environments craft us over time? This enduring debate between nature and nurture is central to understanding personality, human behavior, and development. In reality, personality emerges from a complex interplay between our biological inheritance and the world we grow up in, a dynamic dance between genes and environment. On the nature side, genetics provides the blueprint for our psychological makeup. Decades of research, especially since the rise of behavioral genetics in the 20th century, have revealed that many aspects of personality have a heritable component. Twin and adoption studies have been especially illuminating. Identical twins separated at birth often show remarkable similarities in temperament, intelligence, interests, and even life choices despite vastly different upbringings. Such findings demonstrate that genetics significantly influences traits like extroversion, neuroticism, and openness to experience. Biological foundations include not only DNA but also neurobiology and physiology. For example, studies show that differences in brain structures and neurotransmitter systems can correlate with personality traits. The limbic system, which regulates emotion, and the prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making and impulse control, are areas of focus. Differences in sensitivity to dopamine or serotonin, neurotransmitters linked to reward and mood regulation, can affect traits such as sociability or anxiety. Temperament, which we discussed in the previous chapter, is largely a biological inheritance. The innate tendencies we show from infancy in activity levels, mood, and adaptability. These early temperamental traits provide the foundation for later personality development. They influence how children respond to their environment and, crucially, how caregivers respond to them. On the other hand, nurture emphasizes the vital role of environmental influences, from family dynamics to culture, social relationships, education, and life experiences. Our surroundings provide the context in which personality unfolds, shaping and sometimes reshaping the traits we inherit. Parenting style is one of the most significant environmental factors. Authoritative parenting, characterized by warmth and firm boundaries, tends to foster healthy emotional regulation and social competence. In contrast, neglectful or inconsistent parenting can contribute to insecurity or behavioral problems. Early attachment experiences with caregivers lay the groundwork for how individuals form relationships and regulate emotions throughout life. Culture shapes personality too. Different societies emphasize various values and behaviors. Individualistic cultures prize independence and self-expression, while collectivist cultures stress harmony and interdependence. These cultural frameworks influence which personality traits are nurtured or suppressed, and how individuals perceive themselves and others. Life events, both positive and traumatic, can have lasting effects on personality. Successes build confidence and openness, while adversities like abuse, loss, or chronic stress may increase neuroticism or cause changes in behavior. Personality is not fixed but shows a degree of plasticity across the lifespan. The interaction between genes and environment is not a simple additive process. Instead, it is interactive and reciprocal. Genetic predispositions influence how we interpret and react to the world, which in turn shapes the environments we seek or create. For example, an extroverted child may gravitate towards social activities, reinforcing their sociability, while a shy child might avoid such situations, limiting social growth. This is known as gene-environment correlation. Moreover, certain environments may activate or suppress genetic tendencies, a concept called gene-environment interaction. A genetic vulnerability to anxiety might only manifest under conditions of high stress or trauma. Conversely, supportive environments can buffer or compensate for genetic risks. Recent advances in epigenetics have deepened our understanding of these processes. Epigenetics studies how environmental factors can modify gene expression without altering the DNA sequence itself. Factors like diet, stress, or trauma can cause chemical changes that switch genes on or off, influencing personality development and even passing effects across generations. Personality also changes with age. reflecting the dynamic interplay of nature and nurture over time. Research shows general trends such as decreases in neuroticism and increases in conscientiousness and agreeableness as people mature. Life roles, responsibilities, and experience contribute to these shifts, indicating that personality is flexible rather than rigid. The Big Five personality traits, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, are heavily influenced by genetics, but environment plays a crucial role in shaping their expression. For example, someone genetically predisposed to openness might express creativity strongly if encouraged in childhood, or might suppress it in a restrictive environment. Understanding nature and nurture helps us appreciate that personality is neither destiny nor mere accident. It highlights the importance of early intervention, supportive relationships, and conscious effort in personal development. For example, a child with a difficult temperament can thrive with the right parenting and educational support. It also has implications for mental health. Conditions such as depression, anxiety, or personality disorders often arise from the interaction of genetic vulnerability and environmental stresses. Effective treatment involves addressing both biological factors and environmental contexts. The nature versus nurture debate continues to evolve as science advances. It teaches us humility. We're shaped by forces beyond our control, yet we retain agency through the environments we choose and the changes we pursue. Personality is a living, growing mosaic, forged by the intertwined threads of biology and experience. Personality and relationships. Personality plays a profound role in shaping how we connect with others. From friendships to romantic partnerships, from family dynamics to workplace interactions, our traits influence not only how we perceive others, but also how we behave, communicate, and resolve conflicts. Understanding personality in relationships helps explain why some bonds flourish effortlessly, while others become tangled in misunderstanding. At the core, our personalities affect attachment styles, communication patterns, emotional expression, and expectations from others. These factors can enhance compatibility or, conversely, create tension and friction. One fundamental framework for understanding relationships is attachment theory, which emerged from the work of psychologist John Bowlby and later Mary Ainsworth. Attachment styles, secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized, describe how individuals relate emotionally to others, particularly in close bonds. These styles often arise from early childhood experiences with caregivers, but are also influenced by personality traits. For example, someone high in neuroticism, a trait characterized by emotional sensitivity and anxiety, may be prone to anxious attachment. They might seek constant reassurance and interpret ambiguous situations as threats to the relationship. Conversely, an individual high in avoidance, often linked with introverted or emotionally reserved personalities, might prefer emotional distance and struggle with intimacy. Extroversion shapes how we engage socially. Extroverts thrive on interaction, seek stimulation, and often express warmth openly. They tend to have wider social networks and enjoy group activities. Introverts, on the other hand, prefer smaller circles and deep, meaningful connections rather than broad socializing. This difference can cause misunderstandings if partners have opposing needs for social engagement. Personality also influences communication style, a cornerstone of healthy relationships. For example, individuals with a dominant thinking preference, from Jungian theory, may prioritize logic and objectivity, approaching conflicts with analysis and problem solving. Those with a feeling preference tend to focus on emotions and harmony, valuing empathy and validation. Misalignment here can lead to frustration if one partner feels unheard or dismissed. Another vital trait is agreeableness, reflecting kindness, cooperation, and trust. High agreeableness is often associated with supportive and nurturing relationships, while low agreeableness can predict conflict-prone interactions marked by criticism and defensiveness. Personality impacts conflict resolution approaches. People high in conscientiousness tend to be responsible and planful, which can help in managing disagreements calmly and constructively. Meanwhile, individuals prone to neuroticism may become overwhelmed and reactive, escalating disputes. Compatibility between personality types is a popular topic, but it is not simply a matter of matching traits. Sometimes opposites attract, and sometimes similarity fosters harmony. The key lies in awareness, respect, and adaptation. For instance, a spontaneous intuitive type might clash with a detail-oriented sensing partner, yet they can complement each other if they appreciate their differences and learn to balance flexibility with structure. Personality also influences love styles, the ways individuals express and receive affection. Psychologist John Lee identified 6 love styles: Eros, passionate; Ludus, playful; Storge, friendship-based; Pragma, practical; Mania, obsessive; and Agape, selfless. For example, highly extroverted and sensation-seeking individuals might gravitate towards Eros or Ludus, enjoying intense and playful love. More introverted or conscientious types may favour Storge or Pragma, valuing stability and compatibility. Awareness of one's personality tendencies and those of a partner can improve emotional intelligence and empathy. It enables couples to navigate differences without judgment, communicate needs clearly, and create shared meaning. Beyond romantic relationships, personality affects friendships and social support. Extroverts often have many casual acquaintances, but may invest less deeply, while introverts might maintain fewer but more intimate bonds. Agreeableness fosters trustworthiness and kindness, essential for lasting friendships. Family relationships also reflect personality patterns. Siblings often have distinct traits that influence rivalry or closeness. Parenting styles, as mentioned before, interact with both the child's and the parent's personalities, shaping attachment and developmental outcomes. Understanding personality can also help predict relationship satisfaction and longevity. Research shows that couples similar in traits like agreeableness and emotional stability report higher satisfaction. However, personality is just one factor among many. Shared values, life goals, communication skills, and external circumstances also play critical roles. Challenges arise when personality traits exacerbate negative patterns. For example, a highly neurotic individual paired with a low agreeableness partner might experience frequent conflicts and emotional distress. Without awareness and effort, such mismatches can erode relationship quality. Personality disorders, which we will explore in a later chapter, also have profound impacts on relationships, often causing intense dysfunction and distress. Importantly, personality is not destiny. While traits influence tendencies, people can learn new skills, adapt behaviors, and cultivate emotional growth. Therapy, self-reflection, and open dialogue with partners can enhance relationship quality beyond what baseline personality might predict. In contemporary psychology, the interpersonal circumplex model offers a nuanced map of relationship behavior, describing axes of dominance, submission, and warmth-hostility. This framework helps explain how different personality blends manifest in relational styles, such as assertive friendliness or passive hostility. In sum, personality profoundly colours how we love, argue, support, and connect with others. Recognizing these influences deepens empathy and communication, helping us build stronger, more fulfilling relationships. Through self-knowledge and understanding others, we can transform challenges into opportunities for growth, connection, and lasting intimacy. Personality in the workplace. Personality doesn't just shape our private lives, it profoundly influences how we function at work. From the roles we naturally gravitate towards, to how we collaborate, lead, and cope with stress, our unique traits colour our professional identity and success. Understanding the interplay between personality and work environment can unlock greater satisfaction, productivity, and harmony, both individually and within teams. One of the most extensively researched areas in industrial and organizational psychology is the relationship between the Big Five personality traits and job performance. These 5 traits, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, offer a reliable framework for predicting workplace behavior across various roles and industries. Of these, conscientiousness stands out as the strongest and most consistent predictor of job success. Individuals high in conscientiousness tend to be organized, responsible, and dependable. They set clear goals, follow through with plans, and maintain a strong work ethic. These qualities make them ideal for roles requiring attention to detail, persistence, and reliability. For example, conscientiousness predicts success in careers such as accounting, project management, and quality control. Extroversion influences how individuals engage with social dynamics at work. Extroverts enjoy social interaction, thrive in collaborative environments, and often take on leadership roles due to their assertiveness and enthusiasm. They are energized by teamwork and networking, making them suited for sales, marketing, public relations, and management. However, their preference for external stimulation can sometimes lead to distraction or impatience with routine tasks. In contrast, introverted employees may excel in roles demanding concentration, deep analysis, or independent work. While often quieter in meetings, introverts bring valuable skills such as thoughtful decision-making and careful listening. Many researchers caution against undervaluing introverts in the workplace, emphasizing that leadership and influence do not require constant visibility or outgoingness. Openness to experience reflects creativity, curiosity, and willingness to embrace new ideas. Employees high in openness often excel in innovative fields like design, research, and technology, where adaptability and imaginative problem-solving are prized. They are more comfortable with ambiguity and change, which is increasingly important in today's rapidly evolving job market. Conversely, those low in openness may prefer structured, predictable environments and can provide stability when consistency is needed. Agreeableness plays a key role in workplace relationships and team dynamics. Agreeable individuals tend to be cooperative, empathetic, and conflict-averse. They often act as the social glue in teams, helping maintain harmony and facilitating collaboration. Roles involving customer service, counseling, and human resources often benefit from high agreeableness. However, excessive agreeableness may sometimes hinder assertiveness, leading to difficulty setting boundaries or advocating for oneself. Neuroticism, characterized by emotional instability and sensitivity to stress, generally predicts poorer job performance and higher burnout risk. Individuals high in neuroticism may experience anxiety, mood swings, and difficulty coping with pressure. While emotional sensitivity can sometimes enhance empathy and intuition, excessive neuroticism can undermine resilience and decision-making under stress. Employers increasingly recognize the importance of mental health support and stress management programs to help mitigate these challenges. Beyond individual traits, personality shapes work styles and approaches to leadership. For example, Jungian typologies, such as the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, categorize personalities by preferences in perceiving and judging information, thinking versus feeling, sensing versus intuition, and introversion versus extroversion. Leaders with a thinking preference tend to make decisions based on logic and objective criteria, whereas those with a feeling preference prioritize harmony and values. Understanding these differences can improve leadership development and team management. Similarly, dominant functions from Jungian theory influence work behavior. For instance, an extroverted thinking type often excels in organizing and directing, while an introverted intuition type might shine in strategic planning or vision setting. Appreciating the diversity of cognitive styles helps create balanced teams, where complementary strengths mitigate individual weaknesses. Team dynamics benefit enormously from personality diversity. Research consistently shows that teams with a range of traits, balancing extroversion and introversion, openness and conscientiousness, thinking and feeling, tend to be more creative, adaptable, and resilient. Diverse perspectives foster innovation and prevent groupthink, encouraging critical evaluation and constructive conflict. Managers who recognize and leverage this diversity can build more effective, high-performing teams. However, personality differences can also cause misunderstandings and conflict. For example, an extroverted manager's direct communication style might overwhelm an introverted employee who prefers written feedback and time to process. Likewise, a highly conscientious team member may become frustrated with a colleague's more spontaneous or less detail-focused approach. Awareness of these dynamics enables empathy and tailored communication, enhancing collaboration. Personality also influences career choice and satisfaction. Individuals tend to pursue professions aligned with their core traits and values, a phenomenon known as person-environment fit. When there is alignment between personality and job demands, employees experience higher engagement, motivation, and well-being. Mismatches, however, often lead to dissatisfaction, stress, and turnover. For example, A person high in openness and extroversion might thrive in creative, fast-paced environments, such as advertising or entrepreneurship, while someone high in conscientiousness and introversion may prefer research or technical roles. Understanding one's personality can thus inform career planning and professional development. The modern workplace increasingly values emotional intelligence, EEI, the ability to perceive, understand, and manage emotions in oneself and others. While EI is distinct from personality, it overlaps with traits like agreeableness and emotional stability. Leaders with high EI foster trust, motivate teams, and navigate conflict effectively. Personality also shapes responses to workplace stress and change. Employees high in neuroticism may find fast-paced or uncertain environments particularly challenging, whereas those high in openness may embrace change as an opportunity. Effective organizations provide support systems tailored to diverse needs, recognizing that psychological safety and well-being are essential for sustained productivity. Beyond the individual, organizations utilize personality assessment tools during recruitment and selection processes. Tests like the Big Five Inventory or MBTI help employers gauge candidate fit for specific roles and cultural environments. However, ethical considerations arise regarding privacy, fairness, and over-reliance on such measures. No test can capture the full complexity of a person, and personality should complement, not replace, interviews and reference checks. In leadership development, personality insights guide coaching and training, helping leaders understand their strengths and blind spots. For instance, a leader with a low agreeableness might need to cultivate empathy and listening skills, while a neurotic leader could benefit from stress management strategies. In conclusion, personality is a powerful lens through which to view workplace behavior, motivation, and relationships. By embracing the diversity of traits and preferences, individuals and organizations can unlock potential, foster healthier interactions, and create environments where people thrive. Self-awareness and empathy are the keys to navigating the complex interplay of personality in the professional world, transforming challenges into opportunities for growth, innovation, and success. Testing yourself. What works and what doesn't? In the age of the internet and social media, personality tests are everywhere. From quick quizzes promising to reveal your true type in under 5 minutes, to lengthy questionnaires developed by psychologists, the allure of personality testing is undeniable. But with such an abundance of tools, some scientific, many less so, it's crucial to separate the meaningful from the misleading, to understand what works and what doesn't in the realm of self-assessment. Personality tests serve a range of purposes. For some, they offer a fun, light-hearted way to explore the self and spark curiosity. For others, they become tools for career guidance, relationship insight, or personal growth. Yet not all tests are created equal, and the impact of relying on inaccurate or oversimplified assessments can be profound, leading to confusion, false self-perceptions, or even limiting beliefs. One of the most well-known and widely used personality frameworks is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, which sorts individuals into 16 personality types based on preferences in 4 dichotomies: extroversion versus introversion, sensing versus intuition, thinking versus feeling, and judging versus perceiving. The MBTI's popularity has soared, embraced by millions in workplaces and social circles. However, psychologists remain skeptical about its scientific validity. The MBTI is not designed to measure traits on a continuum, but rather to categorize people into distinct types. This either-or classification can oversimplify the fluid nature of personality and ignores that people often fall somewhere in between. The test's reliability also raises questions, with many individuals receiving different results upon retaking it after just a few weeks. Furthermore, the MBTI lacks strong predictive power for behavior or job performance, limiting its utility in serious psychological or occupational settings. In contrast, the Big Five personality traits, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, are grounded in decades of rigorous research and provide a dimensional approach to personality. Instead of fitting individuals into boxes, Big Five assessments score traits on a spectrum, reflecting the nuanced variations in human personality. Tests based on the Big Five tend to have higher reliability and validity, making them more useful for scientific, clinical, and organizational purposes. Yet even scientifically robust tests come with limitations. For one, they measure personality at a particular moment in time, and personality can shift gradually with life experiences, age, and conscious efforts at change. Results can be influenced by the test taker's mood, self-awareness, and honesty. Additionally, many self-report measures depend on individuals' ability to accurately observe and describe their own behaviors and feelings, something that is not always straightforward. Short quizzes and online fun tests often lack standardized questions, validated scoring systems, and any peer-reviewed research. Their results are designed to be entertaining and shareable, rather than diagnostic. While they may provide interesting food for thought or a starting point for exploration, they should never be taken as definitive assessments of one's personality or psychological health. Another common pitfall is confirmation bias, the tendency to notice and remember information that confirms existing beliefs or desires while ignoring contradictory evidence. For example, someone who identifies strongly with the introvert label may selectively interpret ambiguous test questions or descriptions to reinforce that identity, even if other traits suggest more ambivalence. This selective interpretation can entrench rigid self-concepts and reduce openness to growth. The context and purpose of testing also matter greatly. Personality assessments used by trained professionals in clinical, counseling, or organizational settings are administered with care, interpretation, and ethical considerations. Professionals integrate test results with interviews, observations, and history to create a fuller understanding of the individual. Conversely, self-administered tests taken alone without guidance can lead to misinterpretation or unnecessary anxiety. In recent years, there has been growing interest in dynamic assessment approaches that capture changes in personality and behavior over time, rather than static snapshots. These involve repeated testing and contextual analysis, emphasizing personality as a process rather than a fixed state. Technology also enables ecological momentary assessment, collecting real-time data about thoughts and feelings in everyday life through mobile devices, offering a more nuanced and personalized picture. When approaching personality testing, it is essential to keep in mind these key principles. Use tests as tools for reflection, not labels. Personality assessments can illuminate tendencies and preferences, but do not define the totality of a person. They provide language to understand patterns, but must be balanced with self-compassion and flexibility. Beware of overly simplistic results. Tests that claim to deliver the answer about your personality, career path, or romantic compatibility in a few clicks should be approached with caution. The human psyche is too complex for easy categorization. Seek out reliable, validated instruments. Tests based on well-established research, like the Big Five, Hexaco, or validated clinical inventories, offer more trustworthy insights. When possible, engage with a qualified professional for interpretation. Embrace the fluidity of personality. People grow and change. Testing can be a starting point to understand yourself, but should not become a prison of fixed identity. Use results as a springboard for curiosity rather than a cage of certainty. In conclusion, personality testing is a mixed landscape. Scientific tools exist that provide meaningful insights, but many popular tests lack rigor and can mislead. The real value lies not in getting the right answer, but in fostering self-awareness, compassion, and openness to change. Thoughtful use of personality assessments, combined with critical thinking and professional guidance when needed, can enrich the journey of understanding who we are. Beyond labels, the evolving self. Personality frameworks and typologies offer compelling maps to explore the rich landscape of human nature. They provide us with language, categories, and models to better understand who we are and how we relate to others. Yet it is vital to remember that no personality type or label can ever fully capture the evolving, dynamic self. The essence of being human is change, growth, transformation, and continual renegotiation of identity. When we first encounter personality types, it can feel reassuring to find a label that fits. This sense of belonging, that there is a name for our quirks, preferences, and patterns, is deeply comforting. But over time, the risk emerges that these labels become fixed identities. rigid frames that limit our perception of ourselves and others. We may begin to identify so strongly with a type that we ignore evidence of change or deny parts of ourselves that don't conform. This is especially true in the age of social media, where personality quizzes, horoscopes, and typology memes are shared widely. The temptation to reduce complex individuals to neat categories is strong, often for the sake of simplicity or social belonging. But human psychology refuses to be boxed in permanently. The self is fluid, layered, and shaped continuously by experience. In Jungian psychology, this process of growth is known as individuation, the lifelong journey toward integrating the unconscious and conscious aspects of the psyche, toward wholeness. Individuation involves moving beyond the limitations of one's dominant personality traits or types, and embracing a fuller range of inner experiences, including the parts we have rejected or disowned. Labels like MBTI types or Enneagram numbers are snapshots, a starting point, not a destination. They describe tendencies, but humans possess the capacity for adaptation and transformation. Through self-reflection, therapy, meditation, and life challenges, people can develop underused aspects of their personalities, change habitual responses, and expand their emotional and cognitive range. Consider how children often show traits that differ from their adult personalities. A shy child may grow into an outgoing adult. A cautious teenager might become an adventurous explorer. Life events, trauma, success, loss, relationships serve as catalysts for personality shifts. This plasticity reflects not only the brain's neuroplasticity, but also the psyche's symbolic capacity for renewal. Moreover, many personality typologies acknowledge the existence of shadow aspects, those traits and tendencies that lie beneath conscious awareness or are actively rejected. The shadow may contain potential gifts as well as challenges. To mature psychologically, one must recognize and integrate these hidden dimensions rather than project them onto others or suppress them. Personality labels can also obscure the contextual nature of behavior. We don't act the same way with family, friends, co-workers, or strangers. Stress, health, culture, and environment influence how personality traits manifest. A person described as introverted may display extroverted behaviors in certain situations, such as when passionate about a topic or comfortable with close friends. Personality is not a fixed script, but a flexible repertoire that shifts depending on circumstances. The tendency to seek identity in external labels is a natural human impulse. It helps us find order in the chaos and relate to others. Yet, when labels become identity cages, they stifle growth. Psychological rigidity is often a source of suffering, the refusal or fear to explore new facets of the self, to question assumptions, or to face the unknown within. True self-knowledge, paradoxically, requires both embracing and transcending personality types. It means using them as mirrors for reflection, rather than walls of confinement. It means recognizing that our type is a helpful myth, not an absolute truth. Each individual is an ever-unfolding story, a unique constellation of traits, experiences, values, and dreams that cannot be fully contained by any test or description. For this reason, many modern psychologists and thinkers advocate a process-oriented view of personality, one that prioritizes development, growth, and flexibility over static categorization. This perspective encourages curiosity about contradictions, openness to change, and a compassionate acceptance of complexity. From a spiritual or philosophical angle, the evolving self aligns with ideas of impermanence and transformation, found in traditions like Buddhism and existentialism. The self is seen not as a fixed entity, but as a continuous becoming, a flow of consciousness shaped by awareness and intention. Practically, moving beyond labels means cultivating mindfulness and self-compassion. It involves observing our habitual patterns without harsh judgment, and exploring areas of discomfort or resistance with kindness. It invites us to welcome the parts of ourselves that challenge our preferred self-image, and to find balance between acceptance and growth. In relationships, this perspective fosters deeper understanding and patience. When we see others not as fixed types, but as evolving beings, we allow space for change and complexity. We avoid stereotyping and open ourselves to richer connections. Educationally and organizationally, embracing the fluidity of personality challenges, rigid categorizations used in hiring, team building or learning styles. It suggests that fostering environments where people can develop new skills and traits may be more beneficial than pigeonholing them into predefined roles. Ultimately, the journey beyond labels is an invitation to engage with the mystery of who we are, a mystery that cannot be fully known, but can be deeply felt and explored. It calls for a balance between the comfort of categorization and the freedom of individuality, between understanding our tendencies and embracing the vast potential for change. Personality types are tools, valuable, illuminating but imperfect. They serve best when used with humility and awareness, as maps that guide us through the inner terrain without limiting the vastness of our human experience. The freedom of self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is a profound, transformative journey, a path leading not just to greater understanding, but to genuine freedom. It is freedom from the unconscious forces that shape our actions, from repetitive patterns that limit our potential, and from the invisible chains of conditioned responses. To know oneself fully is to step out of the shadows of ignorance and into the light of awareness. But what exactly does it mean to have self-knowledge? At its core, self-knowledge means recognizing the distinct facets of our personality, the impulses, motivations, fears, and desires that underlie our behavior. It involves becoming conscious of what Jung called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we tend to reject or ignore, often because they feel uncomfortable or unacceptable. These hidden dimensions influence us deeply, sometimes sabotaging our relationships, careers, and sense of well-being. When we cultivate self-knowledge, we are no longer puppets to these hidden forces. We gain the ability to observe our reactions rather than be driven by them. This observation creates a space between stimulus and response, a space where choice becomes possible. In this space, true freedom is born. Jung described the process of individuation as the lifelong journey of integrating unconscious contents into consciousness. It is a dynamic unfolding toward wholeness. Self-knowledge is the cornerstone of this process. Without it, we remain fragmented, unaware of the internal conflicts that pull us in opposing directions. Freedom through self-knowledge also means understanding the limitations of our personality types and traits. Every personality framework, whether it be MBTI, Big Five, or the Enneagram, highlights particular tendencies. Some of these tendencies serve us well, while others can trap us in rigid roles or habitual patterns. For example, an introverted thinker may excel at analysis but struggle with emotional expression. Without awareness, this imbalance can lead to isolation or misunderstandings. Recognizing these patterns allows us to soften their grip. We begin to see that personality traits are not fixed cages but dynamic tendencies, habits of mind and behavior that can be cultivated, balanced, and transcended. This insight opens the door to psychological flexibility and growth. Moreover, self-knowledge frees us from unconscious projections onto others. Often, we attribute our own fears or flaws to people around us, which clouds our perception and fuels conflict. When we become aware of these projections, we reclaim responsibility for our inner world and can relate to others more authentically and compassionately. In relationships, self-knowledge deepens connection. It allows us to communicate our needs clearly, set healthy boundaries, and appreciate differences without judgment. Instead of expecting others to fit our internal scripts, we accept them as complex beings, just as we strive to accept ourselves. Beyond the personal realm, self-knowledge has profound social implications. It is the foundation for empathy, tolerance, and peace. When we understand our own complexities, we become less prone to rigid ideologies or tribalism. We recognize the humanity in others and the shared challenges of the human condition. However, the journey towards self-knowledge is not always comfortable or straightforward. It often requires facing difficult truths, confronting inner wounds, and dismantling long-held illusions. This process can provoke anxiety, resistance, or despair. But it is precisely in these moments that transformation is possible. Spiritual traditions and psychology alike emphasize the courage and humility needed to embark on this inward voyage. The rewards, greater peace, authenticity, and freedom, are worth the effort. Self-knowledge also reminds us that personality is not destiny. While our traits and types influence how we see and interact with the world, they do not define the totality of who we are. We possess the capacity to change, evolve, and transcend limiting patterns. This potential is the essence of human freedom. In practice, cultivating self-knowledge involves various tools and practices: reflection, journaling, meditation, therapy, and honest feedback from trusted others. Personality assessments can serve as helpful mirrors, but should never replace deep experiential exploration of the self. It is important to approach self-knowledge with patience and compassion. We are complex beings shaped by biology, history, culture, and circumstance. Growth is rarely linear. Sometimes we regress, stumble, or resist. This is natural. The path to freedom is a spiral, not a straight line. In summary, the freedom of self-knowledge lies in becoming awake to the internal dynamics that govern us, reclaiming agency over our actions, and opening ourselves to the fullness of our humanity. It is a liberation from the tyranny of unconscious patterns and a movement toward wholeness. As we deepen our self-understanding, we free ourselves to live more intentionally, relate more deeply, and embrace the ever-unfolding mystery of who we truly are. The journey within. The journey within is not a destination, but an ongoing process, a continual unfolding of awareness, insight, and transformation. It is the inward voyage that each individual must embark upon to truly know themselves, to discover what lies beneath the surface of everyday existence, the psyche. This journey is ancient and universal. Across cultures and centuries, mystics, philosophers, and psychologists have recognized that the external world is but a reflection of an internal landscape. The great spiritual traditions emphasize the importance of turning inward, from the Buddha's teaching of mindfulness and self-awareness, to the Christian mystics' call for contemplative prayer, to the Sufi practice of inner purification. Psychology, too, especially through the work of Carl Jung, has illuminated the necessity and richness of exploring our inner world. But why is the journey within so vital? Because the external world, no matter how rich or stimulating, cannot provide lasting fulfillment or meaning if we are disconnected from ourselves. Without self-understanding, we are vulnerable to being swept along by external forces, societal expectations, fleeting pleasures, or unconscious drives. The inner journey brings us into contact with our true nature, our core values, and the latent potentials that may remain hidden beneath layers of conditioning and defense. One of the fundamental insights of Jungian psychology is that the psyche is composed of both conscious and unconscious elements. Much of our mental life happens beneath awareness: thoughts, feelings, memories, and complexes that influence our behavior without our knowledge. The journey within invites us to bring these unconscious elements into the light, integrating them into a cohesive and conscious self. This process is what Jung called individuation, a lifelong movement toward wholeness. Individuation means becoming the unique person we are meant to be, rather than a mere product of external roles or inherited patterns. It requires embracing not only the positive qualities we admire, but also the shadow aspects we tend to deny or suppress. The shadow includes traits and impulses that may seem undesirable or socially unacceptable, yet are integral parts of the self. The journey within can be challenging because it demands courage and honesty. Facing the shadow means confronting fears, insecurities, and contradictions. It often involves grief for lost illusions, discomfort with uncertainty, and the dismantling of false identities. Yet this confrontation is necessary for genuine growth. Without it, we remain fragmented, reactive, and disconnected. Tools to aid this inward exploration vary widely. Psychotherapy offers a structured space to explore unconscious material safely, guided by a trained professional. Meditation and mindfulness practices cultivate present moment awareness, helping to observe thoughts and emotions without judgment. Journaling allows for reflective processing, turning the chaotic inner world into coherent narrative. Creative arts, dreams, and active imagination offer symbolic gateways into the unconscious. The path within is also deeply personal and unique. No two journeys look the same, and what resonates for one person may not for another. Some find solace in solitude and silence, others grow through dialogue and community. Some experience breakthrough moments of insight, others move gradually step by step. One of the paradoxes of the inner journey is that the more we dive inward, the more connected we become to the outer world. By understanding our own depths, we develop empathy and compassion for others. we see that beneath the surface differences there is shared humanity, the joys, struggles, and mysteries of being alive. This journey also invites a reconsideration of identity. As we peel back layers, the fixed notion of I begins to soften. We realize that personality traits, roles, and stories we tell about ourselves are part of a fluid, evolving self. This awareness can bring liberation from rigid self-definitions and open us to greater authenticity. It is important to remember that the journey within is not a solitary quest of endless introspection. It is a balance between inner reflection and outer engagement. True self-knowledge is not about escaping the world, but about returning to it with greater clarity and presence. As Jung emphasized, the journey within is marked by a dialectic between opposites, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, order and chaos, self and other. The task is to hold these tensions creatively, allowing them to inform and enrich our experience. The journey within is also a spiritual process, whether one uses that term or not. It involves encountering mystery, awe, and a sense of the numinous, the experience of something greater than the individual ego. This can inspire a sense of purpose, belonging, and transcendence. In our modern world, with its distractions and noise, the call to journey inward may be more urgent than ever. Technology offers constant external stimulation, yet many feel emptiness or disconnection. The inner journey offers a remedy, an invitation to slow down, listen deeply, and reconnect to the wellspring of life within. Finally, the journey within is never truly complete. It is a lifelong unfolding, with new layers revealing themselves as we evolve. Each phase of life brings new challenges and opportunities for growth. The richness of the inner world continually invites exploration. To embark on this journey is to embrace the adventure of becoming fully human, complex, vulnerable, and radiant. It is to discover that the true home we seek is not out there, but within ourselves,